Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my weekly behind-the-scenes DM only live stream crafting Icewind Day, on which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Rime of the Frostmaiden. If you are playing characters of Robin, Frey, Celeste, Edmund, or Thimbleweed, you have stumbled into the wrong stream. I will see you tomorrow, but for the rest of you, welcome. Be wary that there will be lots of spoiler talk. Stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. You can watch all of our D&D live series, as well as reviews and Let's Plays on my YouTube channel, and read weekly session recaps at roguewatson.com. Follow me on Twitter at roguewatson and join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/roguewatson. Apologies about being late. It was baby aggro. I've been monitoring the chat as I was setting things up, and I want to talk about something that did happen last session. Somebody brought up the fact that we needed some moderation in the chat, and I agree. So there was something that was said that should have been moderated, and it was something I missed. And I've talked about this before, but I love interacting with the live chat during Let's Play streams, obviously right now during crafting. But during the actual D&D session, I often don't get to interact nearly as much because I'm running a D&D campaign and, trying to keep things going and everything. If there's a lull, we're waiting for something or the players are talking, then I'll, look at the chat and call out certain fun things. But a lot of times I will just miss stuff. My players actually brought it up to me as a comment that I had missed after we stopped the stream, but before we started the Frostside chat, and we talked about, and they have mod powers, at least the ones who are active in the chat, which is mainly Heather, Reese, and Chris, I believe. So they all have moderation powers, and they're basically talking to me like, hey, is that something that we need to moderate, in the future? And I was like, absolutely, yes, do that power. And we had to go through, we felt like a bunch of, old people, because we're like, okay, how do we do this? We got to click on the thing, and what are the best practices to go forward? So honestly, I've been extremely blessed. We've had an awesome community that I kind of haven't really had to have any of those real strict rules or mods or anything. It hasn't come up very, obviously if somebody comes in and starts screaming, epithets and craziness, then we can just ban that person real quick. So we're basically formulating those organically. And I know a lot of you would obviously make great mods. I see a lot of the recognizable names and things. It's not necessary right now because I think between me and the players that are active in the chat, we can cover everything, and certainly will after we had that conversation. We can cover that in the future. Obviously, if as things get more popular and you get more people, there's always a percentage of just terrible people, or people that just don't know like what's acceptable and what's not. Which you would hope people would use their best judgment, but people have different levels of that, certainly. So right now, I'm not looking at making anybody mods, but that is something that may have to happen in the future, because as folks pointed out recently, I believe I just today hit, what did we hit today? We hit some, I don't know now, I'm not looking at the thing, but we hit some, it was 4,400, I think, maybe, some cool, the odometer switched over to another 0, which is always exciting to see. So anyway, I wanted to make sure to cover that, because that is, I definitely want to maintain a very respectful but still fun, community. And I don't want to let in anything that would make anybody feel uncomfortable. We all have different levels of that. And so I need to make sure that's something that's put forth in our moderation for sure. So anyway, glad we were able to talk about that. So we need to talk about Karkolohk. In the chat, still rattle our pitchforks and torches at those rabble rousers. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's that's partly the thing that's going to happen as you get more people coming in. Like I said, there's always just that percentage of bad people, I guess, in general. So, or again, people that just can't quite understand what's acceptable and what's not. And I certainly don't want to have certain things be acceptable, or even tacitly acknowledge things by willfully ignoring them, which I want to make very clear was not what happened. I completely missed it, and it was brought to my attention after the fact. And so that's not something that should be acceptable. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go back and look at the stream and pretty much guess. Because I was able to immediately go back and scrub through afterwards. That's why, we have some time between we stop the stream and do the Frostside chat, so I was able to go back and do that. Karkolohk. Chat kind of shame them. Excellent job. Yeah, and that's something I'm very proud of. Like, it wasn't a big... you guys responded, I think, in the perfect manner, for sure. Mainly by shutting it down without, immediately resorting to horrendous things on your end, which is obviously very good. So we're in a very unique situation here, and I love that my players have kind of given me this scenario that I never felt like this was meant to be a traditional dungeon crawl. Very similar to the Black Swords quest in Caer Dineval, which was a case where the players were allowed entry into this facility. It was a lot of social role-playing encounters, and then it was up to the players to basically start shit wherever they wanted to, and turn into a fight, at least at the end. Now, that was one where I wanted to force a fight at the end. This situation, I'm not even going to do that. If they want to come up with whatever cockamamie scheme they want that gets them out of here unscathed, then that can totally happen. It's a bunch of goblins. Like, they're level 5. They can kick goblins' ass pretty easily, and the goblins probably realize that. Now, the goblins do have the numbers. It's their fortress. It's their home turf, and there are literally X number of goblins here. Pay no attention to the tokens on the map, because this is the goblin fortress. I can spawn as many fucking goblins as I want to make this an interesting scenario. But it does not have to be a big, aggro fight. So, where we left off last time, Frey is in the goblin wagon, basically guarding everything, which means, if there's like a getaway driver right there, if things really hit the fan. It also means I'll need to come up with something for her to do, which I kind of teased that last stream, or last session, by having her roll a perception check just to see if she would notice if any goblins were doing anything, suspicious, and she rolled really badly, so I can have the goblins do something. And maybe it's like a goblin snuck into the wagon and stole Thimbleweed's bow or something, just to make funsy with it. So maybe they have to have some kind of final social encounter there. Thimbleweed shocked everybody, including me, by striking up a conversation with Snubsuck, which is one of only 2 named goblins in this area. I think the other one is Manifek, who is a goblin, like, shaman or something. It's still just a regular goblin stat block, which I guess I could look at making more interesting goblins rather than just using basic goblins. Is there a more interesting goblin, other than Goblin Boss, that I could use? I'll punt that over to you guys and see. Anyway, so Thimbleweed, which I am using the Goblin Boss stat block for Snubsuck, is basically just the guard. He doesn't really have much information other than the fact that, let's read about Snubsuck. I think he's at the main gate. Nope, he's at the courtyard. The goblin riding the ward is Snubsuck, the courtyard warden. His job is to lock and unlock the main gate at K2. The work charges towards intruders, causing him to fall off the work's back and fall prone. Snubsuck is a coward and flees when separates from out. All right, so I'm retconning all of that. I'm not using any of this. I'm not using him for comedic relief, because goblins are already kind of comedic in general, so I don't need an extra comedic goblin. Instead, I wanted to actually make him a strong, possible antagonist, and perhaps the biggest threat to Chief Yarbnock / Spellix Rumwad, which is there's another goblin here who's very strong, and basically he's the leader of the resistance faction within the goblins, right? The goblins have grown. They've been hit very hard by the everlasting winter. They were doing really well under Chief Yarbnock. Like, he's, secretly a gnome, and he's, I guess, a stereotypical gnome, or he's very inventive and resourceful, like an architect, engineer, and really wanted to, kind of had a change of heart. And whenever which is odd, because his backstory is that, and I teased this, Snubsuck actually mentioned the fact that they attacked a group of adventurers, I believe I said, that were heading north into Icewind Dale, and they triggered an avalanche that that wiped him out, and then they were able to capture all those adventurers, bring them back, and essentially eat them, I think is what it mentions in the backstory. And Spellix was part of that group and was basically just overlooked. And I'm definitely want to put like a chip on his shoulder, where he's very much somebody who he's not a good person necessarily. And he's one of those that's like, you need to recognize my greatness. He feels very much stepped on in his adventuring group and in life in general. And he felt that again when the goblins even ignored him to take all of his buddies to go eat them. So he devised a plan to go rescue them and thought, okay, this is how I prove my worth and everything, is I go rescue them by donning this magnificent disguise. And instead he had kind of a change of heart whenever he reaches the goblins and realizes he could help them, and maybe feels sorry for their plight. They're living in squalor in these caves, and they're freezing and they're hungry and all this. And, over time, we can montage, whatever, he eventually sides with the goblins. Now, oddly, it doesn't say like just his friends all eventually do get eaten, so it doesn't. There could be a macabre thing. They were like, does he eat his friends? What's going on there? But he essentially becomes a goblin and rises through the ranks and ends up devising all these quality of life improvements and tools and things for them. And eventually his magnum opus is building Karkolohk, which is this grand fortress in the mountains that can provide safety and security and a real home base for maybe even multiple goblin tribes coming from around the area, and then they can use that as a staging operation. He builds the wagons, and the wagons go out. Like, they are just thriving, and he's an awesome chief, everything. And then the everlasting winter hits, and he didn't have any plans for that, right? He's not and that's partly what I'm kind of writing in the dialogue. I don't want to. I've got this huge monologue, but hopefully you can be more organic, where the players are asking him questions. But essentially, he didn't have any answer to that. Like, he didn't know, he couldn't devise anything that could stop this, what he thinks is either a magical or divine thing that has happened. And he wasn't sure if it's just happened like here, if it's all over the world, if it's just Icewind Dale, like what the far reaching of that is. So in a desperate plea, he sent, and meanwhile, the goblins have grown very restless. Everything has been falling into disrepair. They're just trying to get food. They're eating a lot of their probably their wagon mounts. It's just they've really fallen on hard times, and they're going back into a more tribal way, and they're looking at the chief going, "This is your fault." And Snubsuck is kind of leading the revolution, I guess, in a ways, which doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good idea for the goblins to depose him, but it's one of those things where, like, look, we're doing so bad. And I mean, it's a classic politician thing, right? You just, all you have to do is say what your predecessor, what the current one is, how he's fucking up, and then, or she, and then that looks good on you, even though you might not have any ideas. As long as you make the other person look bad, you look better in comparison. So that's who Snubsuck is. And I was using him as just kind of the generic, like, he's going to be the one to primarily depose and should be the antagonist to, if the players do want to help Spellix. However, Thimbleweed has struck up a conversation with Snubsuck, and really, like, I'll have to go back and watch the tape, I guess, but he seemed like he was really legitimately concerned and listening to his plight. It was very shocking. I didn't expect, and obviously Thimbleweed is hilariously eloquent in Goblin, which I loved. So now, I was initially thinking, okay, they're gonna go in, they're gonna help Spellix. They're gonna exit. They're gonna come up with some hilarious plan, and then that plan, I'm gonna introduce some complications that are gonna involve basically Snubsuck saying, "Oh, they're kidnapping the chief or something," or "Oh, with the where's the chief going?" And now is the time to rise up and all that, and basically include some social stuff, maybe some combat, and it might not be a thing where you have to bring down the whole wrath of the Goblin Fortress, but enough goblins to attack initially, and then maybe the goblins back out. Something cool happens. But now that Thimbleweed's kind of gotten in good with Snubsuck, that might actually affect things quite a bit. Regardless of what happens with them, with their plan with Spellix, Thimbleweed could try and convince Snubsuck that, like, this is the right call. You could become the leader. Let us take, we'll take the chief out of. Essentially, this solves everybody's problems, right? Because a lot of the goblins are like, we need to get rid of the chief, and the chief is like, I need to get out of here, which is, he's a gnome that would have actually enjoyed his existence just fine as being king of the goblins, but now he's worried correctly that they're going to turn on him soon, and he wants out. So the players, if they play their cards right, could say, okay, we'll agree to get the chief out, and then Thimbleweed can just say, hey, we'll take care of this for you. We'll get rid of him. Peaceful transfer of power. You can be in charge. Boom sauce. That might be a little too easy. So I was thinking one fun thing we could do is maybe Snubsuck's like, all right, but there needs to be some kind of test of strength. And I would love if I could concoct a situation where Snubsuck specifically like challenges Thimbleweed to a fight, and maybe Snubsuck is like, you need to make me like, I need to be able to kick your ass so that I can prove myself to be the leader, because like you all are basically taking the chief away. That might be seen as, a sign that you all should be, or one of you should be chief rather than me. So allow me to like fight you and just kind of create this like cool like one-on-one like arena scenario. I think that would be really cool. And then if I get that far, I would love to partially trigger Thimbleweed's secret, which is the host. And as of right now, it's been 20-some sessions, and I'm still not sure how I'm going to use or in what kind of sequence I'm going to utilize his unique secret, which at this point, it's funny that a lot of the players can kind of guess each other's secrets, although I believe everybody knows Val Robbins. He actually said his. Whereas Thimbleweed actually has some kind of creature inside of him, very similar to like Ripley in Alien 3. So now I don't necessarily want to literally trigger a burst of that creature necessarily, nor am I even sure what creature that is. Like, this is a lot of stuff that I'm still working out, but it would be interesting if I like forced him to make con saves like during a fight, where it's like this would be a legitimate fight, and all of a sudden he just gets nauseous and like maybe like actual bugs spill out of his mouth, or like something crazy happens that makes everybody go, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? I think it would be really fun to fuck with him that way. But otherwise, I'm not quite sure exactly how I want to trigger it or when. And the bad thing is, of this secret especially, when this happens, then what, right? Do you no longer have the secret? Do you no longer have the power? Like, how does that actually manifest in terms of this is a secret that can actually end, which is kind of a bummer. And yet, I guess technically you can reach the end of your personal quest chain, which is similar to what Celeste's gonna reach with the when she gets to It Ascendant. That would be like, oh, this is what happened to you. So I could straight up do that at this moment. I think there are several suggestions in the book of when it can happen. One of them is meeting with Grandalfa in Sunblight. Whenever they have that dinner meeting, so you can literally do the classic like Alien 1 thing about, I forget the character name, but where it's during dinner and he like falls over and there's that really classic horror scene. Or you could do it as late as like the Caves of Hunger, even if you wanted to wait even longer. What I was hoping to do is literally create an alien situation where if a single creature does pop out of him, then I want that creature to be able to escape and then hunt the players down. So that would be a really cool situation. But they would need to be in, ideally, an enclosed. Oops. Sorry, I just knocked my mic. Enclosed facility to create that kind of horror aspect. All right, let me catch up on the question about what kind of goblins. A bunch of goblins in one of the monster manuals expanded. Ooh, I have 2 of those. Third-party module, Death by Goblins adds a variance. Death by Goblins was my number 1 DM's Guild product last year, I believe. Should look at that. Quickling stat blocks and flavor them as they take some kind of weird magic brew with Chardolin. Ooh, what is a quickling? I have to look that one up. Yeah, if there's even something I can flavor, because you could argue that goblins got their hands on Chardolin somehow. So you could use a creature that's technically not a goblin, but used to be a goblin or something. Chardolin Berserker version of goblins. We also determined that the final life stage of a Chardolin Berserker could be a Gibbering Mouther. Blurred movement. 120 feet. What the fuck? 3 dagger attacks. Yikes. This is from Volo's Guide to Monsters. Attack rolls have disadvantage. Wow, that's hilarious movement. 120 feet. Literally just like blur. The other thing we have to talk about is have him molt like a bug. That'd be weird. Tomb of Beasts. I have Tomb of Beasts. There's a creature called a Frogashar, basically an ice goblin. One moment, let me look. Let's see. Flipping through the pages. Frogashar is page 206. I've had this thing for years now. Oh, yeah. Look like an ice goblin. CR half. AC of 15, average hit points of 18, stealth +4, is unimpeded by rocky snow or icy terrain. Has a bite and a dagger attack and a sling. They're a Fae. Goblins don't normally have multi-attack, do they? So that would be an upgrade. Do not. It's +4 with 5. It's also twice the hit points of a goblin. That would be significantly more difficult. But could be good if I want to use their like more warrior cast of goblins too. So that'd be a pretty solid addition. The picture might be a little too exotic for a goblin, but the stat block is pretty solid. The other thank you, Stan. The other thing we need to talk about, hey Nick, I haven't seen you in that chat for a while, is so Karkolohk has, or maybe the chief is in possession of one of the egg-shaped crates that was that the aliens from id Ascendant were keeping their abductees in, which is mentioned in, I believe, K12. A metallic egg-shaped crate as big as he is. Made of magical metal, this indestructible container is 3.5 feet tall and 3 feet wide. I could change the size. That's pretty small. With a flat base that allows it to stand upright, and seams at the top that suggests it opens like a flower. Though it looks smooth, its surface feels tacky. It weighs 250 pounds, has a panel of flashing lights below its bulging midsection. It's a 9-digit lockpad mechanism, and each glowing button has a braille-like bumps on it. Spellix was unable to remove the keypad or crack open the crate, so he's been trying different combinations on the lock. And it literally says this isn't even a puzzle, it's just you have to use like the knock spell or pay someone in 10 towns to cast the spell. That's interesting. It's a service you can do. Oh, is that written in our house rules as a service? Put some of those down. Is not. I wonder how much a knock spell would cost. What is knock? Second level? Probably looking at the 40 gold or something. Although maybe they're marshals, they can come up with something. Anyway, so the twist is that inside of this thing is a fucking gibbering mouther, which is cool. But I already used a gibbering mouther. Damn me. I used it in Caer Dineval when it was a big twist in my big cool horror moment where this basically Chardalyn Berserker had been experimented on and erupted into a gibbering mouther, which is a really fun creature to use and did not end up being a straight up fight. And I could use it again with the caveat that maybe the aliens abducted somebody who was infected with Chardalyn, and so over time they would just turn into a gibbering mouther. That could work, or we could have fun with literally any creature we wanted to. I could still keep the idea that there's a hostile creature in there, but I could do literally anything because these aliens just went around abducting people and creatures and all kinds of stuff. And whatever I would do, I would probably give it a version of Celeste's like Mind Blast ability. So maybe when it first pops out, it like clutches its head and everybody has to make a save or be stunned or something. So I like the idea of still using it, and it's obviously a great thing for Celeste because that would trigger her memories about, oh shit, this looks exactly like the thing that I crawled out of in the snow in session 1, basically. And Stan, that's not a bad idea. I could have that could be part of her thing, is that she somehow just a memory jogs where she can picture the aliens, which are the cute little gnome Ceramorphs, maybe pushing the right combination. So only she knows, and only if she wants to reveal that she knows. So I'd have to do this via whispers. And that would be something that Spellix would offer. So, and Stan, I'm going to use something you suggested last time. I'm going to basically have two. I think the players would want to do this anyway, just so they could do the quest. But I do want to offer them two incentives for helping Spellix escape the goblins. One of which is he'll say, hey, I've got this big, weird crate that seems like magically sealed that I can't open. You guys can either open it or just take it with you and find somebody who can open it, and that's yours. You can have it. We'll have to say something to goblins about these people are taking this thing away or trading it or something, but you can have this thing if you can transport it out of here. And then the funny twist will be there's just a fucking monster inside. And give a clue to Celeste about, like, oh shit, there's more of these and some of them are dangerous. The other thing is he will give them the reason that he was part of that adventuring group that was headed north into Icewind Dale was that they were after the treasure of, what was his name? Let's see. The ship is called the Dark Duchess. Treasure of Captain Rudolph Blue Moon. Captain Rudolph Blue Moon. So it was a classic treasure hunt. They were going north in Icewind Dale to look for this treasure. I'm going to include a backstory that Captain Blue Moon was rumored to have or was looking for a hideout in Icewind Dale to put all his treasure in. And he happened to have all his treasure in this ship, but it crashed somewhere in the Sea of Moving Ice. And the adventurers were able to get a map of his last known, I guess, ship location or something. I don't know, for whatever reason he had that. And that's what they were heading towards. And he will offer to give them that. Now, he's not going to have a map, because this is something I thought of, the players could just steal a map and say, fuck off. He doesn't have the map anymore. It's just in his head. It's the classic, it's not, I don't have it on me. It's in here. So that would be the, hey, you have to get me to safety, and then I will tell you this information. Now, the players could, I guess, threaten him and do all that, but hopefully it wouldn't reach that point. Obviously, I'm hoping they do the quest anyway. I guess it's a side quest. It technically doesn't matter if they help Spellix or fucking yeet him off the cliff or whatever they want to do with him. But that would be something that he would try to use as a bargaining chip, is like, hey, if you want this treasure loot, which is a straight up second quest in this campaign, which is a great one, because what nobody knows is that this fucking the pirate treasure ship is there, but it is now a layer of an ancient white dragon, or not a layer, I guess it's like an annexed horde of an ancient white dragon, which should be an awesome scenario to do, just a fun little side content. And I thank you so much, Sam, because that is a great way of introducing it, which I love. So that'll be the two incentives they will have for actually getting Spellix out of this situation. He himself would only act defensively, and I believe it mentions the fact that he would only defend himself. He doesn't want to kill goblins on his way out. He doesn't want to turn this into a bloodbath, and he will admit, hey, I've got some magic powers, but nothing that's gonna take out just hordes of goblins by myself, and I'd rather just, not get out of here. And he's like, there's no good way for me to sneak out. I'm the chief. I'm, constantly guarded and watched over, and I can't just leave on, different things. It's my place is here. So, he'll have reasons why he needs, and he wanted to wait and reveal himself until he knew the adventurers were strong enough. And now he's like, okay, you guys just escort me out of here somehow, just fight your way out if necessary, but I would prefer not to have to, kill a bunch of goblins on the way out. Now, the players can choose whatever they want. They can say, well, fuck you, we don't care, or okay, we'll get you out of here, or and then in doing so, they can decide to kill every last goblin in here, which technically benefits 10 towns. The goblins so far, and the players could learn more about this, and that's probably something Spellix would want to try to do also, is that, hey, we don't fuck around with 10 towns. We know, we don't want to provoke their ire or wrath or give any excuse for them to go goblin hunting. We stay down here. We range pretty far. And he's like, however, I've been having trouble, that rule has been getting more lax, and he's not surprised if they mention the fact that, hey, goblins were found not too far from Bryn Shander trying to steal, whatever, iron or something. Then that would be part of the relenting of like, yeah, that could be a problem. But that's something that is interesting, that Thimbleweed is able to talk to Snubsuck, and maybe that would be part of some kind of bargain they can make, is like, hey, we're going to put you in charge, peaceful transfer of power, but you got to promise to basically uphold the same general rules about not, attacking 10 towns or anything. And that can be one of those epilogue things where it's like, well, because of your actions here, how did they respond? Like, did the goblins eventually overthrow Snubsuck, or did he stick to what you said, or did he revert back to, hunting down everybody? Like, just kind of something I could play with, but none of this particularly matters in the course of the main quest, other than I think it's a fun opportunity now, which I didn't know that going into it, but it could be a fun opportunity for Thimbleweed's character growth, who surprisingly is into the plight of the goblins. So I'm going to like double down on that and work with that. And like I said, if I can try to do some kind of scenario that's, Snubsuck's like, hey, you and I need to duel. And, because everybody's going to think that you are the ones that are actually should be in charge or something, and I need to assert my dominance over you. Or maybe he just turns and says like, oh no, they're getting away, you tricked me, and then they just attack and it's a straight up fight. Like, I'll work something out. But there's definitely going to be that major complication with him. The other complication I can introduce, well, I think I need to do more with Frey, because I don't want to leave her just sitting there doing nothing. So maybe goblins are, stealing from the wagon, and maybe inside, once they start raising the alarm, if the alarm gets raised, then I can have, obviously, the goblins out here start, advancing on Frey, and she has to start actually like fending them off and stuff. So they start like pelting her with arrows, and basically shit gets real out here when shit hits the fan inside. So I'm kind of hoping it does a little bit. And, who knows how much the goblins actually do respond to orders, right? If Snubsuck just orders everybody, or even if, the goblins might not all be part of the revolution. Some of them might be loyal to the chief, and so there might be goblin on goblin fighting. That's a hard thing to do in D&D. In a video game, you can have that in the background where there's all these different, things happening and fights going on, and you're kind of escorted along your certain path. But in D&D, there's all, the players can obviously interact with anything. So that's a tricky thing to bring forth. But I'm going to try to create a dynamic situation. The other complication, as I mentioned, is introducing that other named goblin, which is, I believe their name is Manifek, and they are in K6. The only other named goblin, Manifek. The goblin healer is in the easternmost hut. She tells fortunes by studying patterns of raven's blood spilled on the snow. She is wise enough to have seen through Chief Yarbnock's disguise, and is contemplating whether to blackmail the gnome or expose him. She's leaning toward the former, since she's not sure the goblins will pick her as their new leader if Yarbnock dies. So, that one I may have in my pocket if the players make it even past Snubsuck and they're still good to go. Like, if no hostilities have happened because they've been playing everything so well and so nice and really smooth things over with all the goblins, then maybe I will pull Manifek out of my pocket and say, she's gonna say like, hey, she's basically expose everything and really fuck things up for the party, and say like, this isn't even, this was a trick all along. These were his friends and everything. I've seen it in the blood that, or I've, whatever she says, that he's not a real chief. And then that could cause hostilities to really happen very quickly. And at the very least, like, everybody roll for initiative, get into some fights, and then after the players fight some off. Or what I would really like to end up happening, if that happens, is create a situation where the players realize they're not supposed to just stay and fight, right? They can kill goblins all day long, but there's like goblins just constantly spawning. So it would be a situation where like, no, you guys need to be moving and escaping out of here, ideally. And maybe even I can introduce, which I haven't shown this yet, and maybe I should have teased it before, is have them roll out some fucking like siege weapons. Like, how much has this gnome like given them technologically? Like, can they have like maybe a mounted ballista or something? Now suddenly you've created a really interesting opportunity for goblins to kick all kinds of ass if you do that. Unfortunately, I haven't teased that yet, so it definitely feel like a little bit of DM cheating at that point to just like, oh yeah, and by the way, there's ballistas around here. But maybe there's something, I don't know, that's not quite a huge ballista, but some kind of mounted weaponry that wasn't seen before that the goblins could employ, or I don't know, some kind of cool tool or system. Maybe they've got, I don't know, it wouldn't be biological because I feel like, in fact, it even mentions the fact that all these cages are empty, so they don't, I think they ate most of their mount, so it would have to be something mechanical, but just a thought I had to try to make things interesting. Snubsuck does have his warg, so if it does end up being a traditional fight, then obviously him and his warg can do some damage. I think I already rolled hit points for him and ended up with pretty much near max. As a goblin boss, he's got 30. And the warg, I guess I didn't roll any for the warg. I could do that. You are not going to, yeah, okay. 26, let's see what we get, because you're just a regular warg. Oh no, 14, that's not going to work. I'm not going to allow that. That's a really sickly warg. How bad did I roll for hit points? 40, 10 plus 4 is almost minimum. Alright, I'm making an executive decision to re-roll that. 23, I accept that. Terrible. Especially because there's only one here. And that's probably why. Like, all the other wargs should have been eaten, but he's hung on to his. Some kind of clockwork thing might work. That's true. You know, there's the I got rid of the Shield Guardian. But yeah, I would. That's what I'm alluding to. Jay is doing some kind of cool, you know, start the plane, like cool with Frey like in the wagon, like, you know, swinging her axe and fending off goblins as they're all rushing out. That I love for that situation to be what ends up happening. Even if they do a pretty good job so far, you know, shit can hit the fan, and then ideally, what I don't want them to do is just stay and turn into a big fight, which is a whole bunch of goblins. But hopefully, more and more goblins are spawning in, and they realize they just need to get the fuck out of Dodge. That could be very enjoyable. Are there rules about getting through the gate, or would they just have to... Let's see, because the gate would be... Did I close the gate? Alright, let's close that gate. That would be something they would have to deal with. Or maybe because they would close the gate after they came in. Let's see, it's not about undetected. Can use an action to reach through it and try to pick the frozen padlock using Thieves' Tools with a successful DC 20 Dex check. And Snubsuck carries the key to the lock. A small character can try to squeeze under the gate or between its wooden bars with a successful Acrobatics check. Doesn't mention anything about using Strength to open it, so maybe it's just too big. But it does just have a key, so it's not like a winch system, I guess. Let's see what it says. It's like a 20-foot tall gate. Yeah, the gate is 20 feet tall. Heavy chain and padlock seals the gate from inside. Okay. So it is a lock-picking thing that they would have to do. Or get the key from Snubsuck, or you could have small characters squeeze through with an acrobatics check. Yes, I will absolutely have never-ending goblins. The never-ending goblins. I replaced the healer with a Nilbog, which is goblin spelled backwards. Nilbogs are... Oh yeah, that's what I wanted. The goblin spellcaster. The picture's a little too goofy. Nilbogism. It can charm you. They have Mage Hand, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Vicious Mockery, and Confusion. Those are all fun spells to use. A Fool's Scepter. Yeah, that's not what I want to... Oh, again, the stat block works. The actual, like, jokester version of the goblin doesn't necessarily work. Reversal of Fortune. In response to another creature dealing damage to the Nilbog reduces the damage to 0 and gains 1d6 hit points. That's annoying as shit. That's just straight up like DM cheating. Like, okay, but instead of that, you actually dealt 0 damage and I healed. Like, what? It's a reaction, so you only do it once per round, but still. It's kind of goofy. I do like that it's got some spells though. I don't think a healer would have these spells. Thinking more like the goblin, like priest stat block almost. I don't know if that's exactly what I'm looking for. And Man Effect should be a different spell block, but I don't know quite if Nilbog fit. What I'm looking for is like the classic like tribal shaman, I guess, stat block, but for a goblin. I can search by goblinoid. I could also just take a goblin and just give it other stuff. Just give it some abilities. Or, like somebody mentioned with the Quickling, use a stat block that's, you know, not a goblin, but just say, okay, this is the stat block, but it is a goblin. Which, like, I'm like an acolyte, I guess, is what I'm looking for. Acolyte's like the low-level cleric, I think. Light, Sacred Flame, Thaumaturgy, Bless, Cure Wounds, and Sanctuary. Cure Wounds doesn't seem worth using against fucking goblins, though. Druid would be better spells. Now, that's a good idea, Nathan. What's the low-level Druid stat block? What's am I thinking of here? Frost Druid's like CR 5. Turtle Druid is close, CR 2. You could take a Turtle Druid and make it weaker. Yeah, they also get Cure Wounds. Speak with Animals would be very appropriate. Animal Friendship. Don't know if they would have. Probably wouldn't have. Well, maybe you could have a second level spell slot. I don't know. Like maybe an Entangle or something interesting you could work with. Although it's an ice. Not too many plants to work with. But that's a good idea. I should use some kind of Druid stat block for mana effect. A good idea for somebody help me out with a low. I guess I could just look at Druid spells and just say like, all right, this is a goblin, but it's got more hit points and has some Druid spells. That's basically it. That's how you make creatures and NPCs. Spells. Druid. Level. We got Cure Wounds, Detect Magic, Earth Tremor. Earth Tremor could be great. Fairy Fire, lighting things up would be very helpful. Healing Word would be good. Ice Knife. Cool spell. Those are all just first level spells. Maybe even give her like Bark Skin. AC of 16. Be good right there. Didn't the Goblin Shaman and Sloth have a lightning bolt? That was scary. Yeah, I think it did. That was scary. I think it could do that once. I think it had like one third level spell slot and it always just fucking lightning bolted you. And it was awful because it was a low enough level where like that scared the shit out of you. Hold Person is good. Use the Goblin Boss token, just give it the Nilbog stat block. Yeah. That's probably close to what I'm going to do. The actual Nilbog stat block is kind of insane with the, like, you can just turn damaging abilities into heals and all this crazy shit. I'm probably going to go with just I probably will go with a Goblin Boss stat block just to give the Mana effect, more hit points. God, the boss has 17. I may give it like a 16 and have like she's got like bark skin on or something. The spell. And instead of multi-attack, just have a bunch of spells, and she can just be flinging spells around. But she's, what's the motivation there? Mention the fact that she would rather blackmail him. She's not sure that goblins will pick her as their new leader if Yarbnock dies. So maybe she just wanted to make her move. Especially if Thimbleweed is working with Snubsuck to create that peaceful transfer of power, then she, unbeknownst to the party, is also looking to be the leader. And unfortunately, nobody went over there to check things out. I mentioned the fact there were goats over there, and Thimbleweed just didn't take the bait, so I didn't have a chance to introduce her last session. So she'll seem kind of like a thing I invented for this coming session, even though she actually does exist in the story. But she will come up and essentially be the primary complication that occurs if they're already able to mollify Snubsuck and get that far. Maybe it's, I need to know when I'm going to actually trigger that. Maybe when they reach the central platform, I'll have her come up the ladder with a bunch of other, or maybe the goblins coming from this direction or something. Definitely gotta have some minions with her. And she'll look like look like a shaman garb. And essentially, expose the chief as a fraud, and this was his plan, was to escape us and leave us to our fate, and blah blah blah. And probably just turn the goblins hostile at that point. Because she wants to be in charge versus Snubsuck. Or maybe it's just like her versus Snubsuck at that point, and the players are caught in the middle. And there's just goblins, part of each faction, and at that point the players can choose to side with one or the other, or just get the fuck out of there while everybody's like fighting each other. And that's the kind of complication I want to arise. And then, as they're running, of course, the goblins will be shooting at them. Make Fall Robin a stress squeezy toy. New Fizzban rhymes. I have not looked at Fizzbans yet. Outcast and knows the secret and helped him join the tribe in the first place. I was thinking that she was the tribe's, probably second in command, the person who really, there's a chief, but then she's the one that really keeps things going. She knows all the important stuff about herbs and the land and everything. And, well, interestingly, I can have her be begrudgingly accepting of Spellex, because maybe she, as a druid and somebody of the land, has not maybe appreciated having all of this technology around and all these carving up trees to build these, maybe she thinks maybe she's just more of a conservative traditionalist goblin, where it's like, these aren't, no true goblin, would live in this kind of fortification and all this. We're people of the land and all this. So that could be her whole deal. And so she has always been a little, but begrudging, because it has brought, prosperity and safety and security, and she's recognized that. And so she knows, even though she's not a fan of this, she knows that she would not be very popular in antagonizing the chief. So she's been playing along. But in the meantime, she's smart enough, and through her magics has seen through the disguise, and has thought about like, how best can I take advantage of this situation. And as the story says, like, she's even thinking about blackmailing him in some ways. And then this happens where now the players are like, the player characters are trying to get him out of here. So she's like, well, crap, I need to make my move now. So I'll need to make sure I get all my story straight there. But hopefully just create a really fun, dynamic situation for the players to deal with. That's, it's exciting and it's terrifying, because this one is even more open-ended than Kaer Dineval was, because Kaer Dineval was also a similar way where it was like, hey, it's up to you guys on how you want to proceed in all these things and how you want to roleplay the different stuff. But it all ended up with them underneath the cistern doing a little bit of a room-to-room dungeon crawl and then ending with that big boss fight. I don't have anything scripted like that here. So this one is way more open-ended where, I can have Snubsuck be concerned about the chief leaving, and then I can have, and my one scripted thing is Manifex showing up with a bunch of goblins saying, hey, this isn't, this shouldn't be what we're doing. I'll need to come up with a good token, I think. I don't necessarily want to use the same goblin boss token for Manifex. I don't have a good alternate. Maybe I might use that Ragashar one, I don't know, but I'll come up with a different token for that and actually create a different stat block for her, just so that can become kind of an interesting boss. In fact, what is this? What is a goblin boss? What CR level is that? All right, it's only CR1, so that's probably what we're looking at, is just creating another CR1, named goblin encounter. And having that just be these two factions who essentially want to depose the chief. And that way, if the players are really doing a good job of smoothing things over with one faction, it's the other one that's going to cause the complication. Now, the interesting thing is, if they don't smooth things over with Snubsuck, then how do I play with Manifex? I don't know. It'll just be up in the air about what's the best thing to do for the story. There may be a situation where she never comes into play. If things are already crazy enough and it's hit the fan, they've done Snubsuck has just gotten really pissed and he's leading the charge, maybe she never even shows up. That could be a thing that happens. So she's really that classic NPC in my back pocket for basically there to stir things up. Or maybe if things are crazy, it would be even more fun to introduce her in the middle of that. I don't know. That is yet to be determined, but something we can look at. For a third option, Thimbleweed is the new Gobbo King. One thing, and I think I mentioned this in one of the Frostside chats, but something I've seen other D&D groups do before is a soft retire of a character, which is basically whenever your character gets to a point that they would rather do that thing than continue their life of adventuring. So they haven't been killed and they haven't completed the current campaign, but the player is like, yeah, this makes sense that my player character would rather do this, go with this faction, or, stay at this location, or go off and do this other thing, whatever it is, with probably the addendum that, hey, I also want to play a new character, right? They roll a new character. So that's not what's happening here necessarily, but that's something my players and I have never done before, and it's something I would be open to, especially if someone was expressing concern and wanting to make a different character. So it's funny you say that, because that's an example of an avenue that could happen. If that's the soft retirement of your character, is if you wanted to become king of the Goblin tribe, then you absolutely could, and then the rest of the party moves on, and then they'd have to obviously recruit a new player character for that player to play. So it's an interesting concept, one that we haven't really explored before in any of our campaigns, but it's something that does happen. I look at it like a soft retirement. I would love to do the one-on-one fight though thing. I'm really looking forward to that. The more I think about it, I'll try to suggest as much as I can. It'd be great if they fought on the edge right here in the upper left. There's literally a fucking death walkway here, which is, let's see, it's called the Walk of Doom. It's lined with skulls for goblins who never make it to the end of the walkway. So whenever they need to kill a goblin, they basically walk the plank, but they have a choice to either jump off or turn around and run back, in which case the goblins just kill them. And that would be a really fun area to have a little one-on-one battle with a classic half circle. I almost think of that scene from Black Panther, with the half circle of the weapons pointed out, and they're on this fucking edge of the abyss. With Thimbleweed versus Snubsuck, which, keep in mind, Thimbleweed does not have his weapons, so he would be given a generic sword versus a goblin boss who is only a CR1, but still probably no joke to fight one-on-one, and I could get rid of his disadvantage on a second attack. I could really play around with making him more powerful if I wanted to, but that would be a really, really fun situation to try to introduce, and one that I would be really hoping to suggest, and I think the players would enjoy that as well if it comes up. So it really just comes down to if I'm able to execute on that. Bullhead mini soft outspeed consort Gobbo King has seen 100 feet of a toad's anus. Indeed, yeah. I've been given so many job offers in a way. He is a amphibious roto-rooter. But yeah, I think we've been going for about an hour now, so that will probably bring an end to this crafting. I really didn't have much in the way of doing tokens or anything like that, because everything's already here. It's just me essentially trying to untangle this situation that I've put my players in, which was by design, and it was really up to it's just a neat scenario, and how do my players respond to that? And one of the reasons why I wanted to run this one, even though it's just a bunch of goblins, is because it offers itself a unique situation with a fun little twist in there. But that can be rewarding. Now, one thing is, I always mentioned I wanted to include a magic item in all of these major quests, and I really haven't done that with this one yet. So the item is technically the egg-shaped crate, which of course is a twist for the players, as well as the reward being essentially the location of a quest that is laden with treasure. So that's kind of how I'm trying to balance it here. I could, and maybe one of them does find something helpful, or some kind of, if they end up snooping around, maybe that can include a treasure room somewhere that they could grab, so they could at least get something useful from here. But the real reward is, of course, the friends we made along the way. He does have that piercer thing. That piercer thing sucks. It does so much damage. He'd probably request a sword. I wouldn't be able to turn him down on that. But yeah, let's hope for the best, right? That's all we can do. That's all I can do is hope for the best, give them as many cool opportunities as I can, and roll with that for next time, and hopefully it's entertaining. All right, I think that will do it for this week's Crafting Icewind Dale. If you enjoy the content, please do check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. And thank you to all the patrons. Shout outs to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Christopher, Thomas, Adam, Stan, Alex, Cam, William, I'm Loud, and Lachlan Baird. And gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Ross, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Sklenia, Nick, Blood Angel, Veronis, Baboon, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, James, and Kyle. Thank you all very much for your support, and I will see you tomorrow night for D&D. Thank you.